I don't snore.
Yeah.
But every now and then it's just like snoring registered
You
for 10
don't
minutes
snore.
if you listen to it.
How do you know
I
you don't
snore.
snore? How do you know?
Because I have a watch that tells me.
But I can't believe that you don't snore.
Why?
What do you do? Everybody snores a little bit.
No, well, yeah, I do. I whenever I snore, I wake myself up.
Beep, 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 beep.
Yeah. It's not technically snoring. It's not... yeah, exactly.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to Short Fuse. I'm Duncan Roberts, and I'm here with Oliver O'Donoghue. Say hi, Ollie.
Hello.
Hi. Nice to see you today. How are you doing?
Soldiering on, despite
tough,
everything.
is it?
Yeah, it's always tough.
Oh,
Surrounded by optimists
tough.
like you.
It looks tough. You wear it on your face, mate.
I've aged terribly.
Hi everybody, welcome to the podcast. We're Short Fuse, and Ollie and I are going to take some kind of technology, a concept, an idea, and we are going to bet on it. We're going to say whether we're long or short on it, whether we believe in it or we don't. And then towards the end of the podcast, we will then rebet to see if either of us have changed our minds. And today we're going to be tackling the thorny issue of sport, but not sport in its entirety, because we'd be here forever. And to be honest, neither Ollie nor I are particularly sporty. I mean, this is probably quite a bad
Speak
topic.
for yourself.
This
I
is
go to
probably
the gym now and everything.
Yeah. Is gym sport? Is going to the gym sport?
If you take up the hobby of gymmanship, which I have, which is incredibly difficult pastime, then yeah, I would consider it a sport.
Okay, we're not going to get into that debate. Mainly, we're going to be talking about technology in sport and whether technology has the ability to improve or whether we think technology improves sport or makes it worse. And I think what we'd do is cover things like, cheating, maybe marginal gains through technology, esports, things like that. So I'm going to let Ollie kick off with his opening gambit and tell me whether you're long or short on technology in sport.
What I like about these increasingly, because I've listened to a few of the ones we've done before, I almost always start off with like, do you know what? I don't know anything about this subject.
And then just talk incessantly.
But yeah,
anyway.
Exactly. Yeah, here's some opinions nonetheless. Yeah. And that's definitely the case, despite my gym hobby, which is recent as of this week.
Yeah.
I don't know a tremendous amount about sports. Obviously, I've seen the controversy of things like VAR and stuff, and I've got relatives that complain a lot about VAR and don't like it, and some that think it's great. So I kind of feel like I'm long technology in sport.
Can you tell me what VAR stands for?
I don't know. It's something assisted referee, isn't it?
Virtual assistant referee.
Something like that. Something.
Shall I Google it?
Yeah, and it's an acronym actually, Duncan, of 3 words.
Right.
One beginning with V, one beginning with A, and one beginning with R. And
video
I think that's all we need.
Referee.
Video assisted referee. Right. But that's an example of technology taking quite a direct impact in sport. But again, at the gym today, I had my smartwatch on that was recording all of my movements, how many calories I was doing. I was wearing shoes that are like ultra light and have been kind of developed by technology over years. I don't think I was wearing any special clothes, frankly. I think I was just wearing shorts and a t-shirt. But there are people there that wear like special things that
they're special to you, mate.
They are special to me, but they push like water away from their body and stuff like that, and make them more aerodynamic. And all of that has technology has played a role in all of it. And I was listening to another podcast relatively recently that placed like one of the first big technological investments in sport. One of the big kind of flashpoint moments was the vulcanization of rubber. So like a chemical innovation. And what the vulcanization of rubber meant was that you could standardize a lot of equipment like footballs. And before that you couldn't. So you'd be playing with a different ball, different weights, stuff like that. And now it's standardized because of that. So I'm pro technology in sport, I think, despite my limited understanding, because sporty people seem to like it. Like no one at the gym was running in those old heavy leather running shoes from the 20s.
Or on like soot. What did they used to run on in the 100 meters?
I've no idea, but I'm sure it was horrible. It's like most things, isn't it? Where the past was bad.
Yeah, well, I watched an interesting video on Reddit or something the other day where it said what was the difference between like 100-meter runner in the Olympics today and 100-meter in the runner in the Olympics many years ago, like in in the 30s or something. And you would think when they're running on like soft running tracks, they've got like just a pair of plimsolls and none of the kind of the advanced analysis that we have today, it would be enormous. But it wasn't that big. It was like under a second difference, which was astonishing, really. But still, in sport, marginal gains, right, under a second is still quite a lot. So I'm going to do my vote. And as always, I feel like this is like a British panel show where the scoring doesn't really count and the conversation is much more important. Well, at least I hope it is. But for me, I think it's very nuanced, technology in sport. I think that technology and sport are great bedfellows in terms of, equipment, like you say, in terms of adjudicating, performance analysis, and also for me, like esports and stuff like that, because I'm a big fan of a particular type of esports, which I'm sure we'll talk about in a minute. But I don't love technology overtaking sport. And I think that that's the concern of people is that you'll take the human element out of sport, which just removes any of the passion and any of the competitiveness. So I'm a massive motorsports fan, and obviously technology is enormously important in motorsports. And it's part of the fun, part of the fun is figuring out what they've done, what technologies they're using to try and make the cars go quicker, how they're kind of working within the regulations. But there's this thing released called the Abu Dhabi Autonomous Motorsports League, where the cars have no drivers and it's just autonomous cars going around. And taking away, ignoring the fact that the cars were going at a third of the speed they could, most of them stopped, none of them crashed because they weren't going fast enough, but it was just a comedy of errors. Ignoring that fact, it completely just removed any interest without having a human driver.
It sounds so dull. And we argue about this a lot. I don't find Formula One or most motorsports interesting anyway. But the human error part is probably the most interesting bit.
Yeah.
Where and you've explained this to me, where some drivers will get really close to another driver, not to overtake, but just to dial up the pressure in the hope that they do something silly. And spin out or whatever it is, presumably with some form of automated version of that, is going to be all calculated and won't have the same impact.
I get it, right? I get that you find motorsports boring, but yeah, this is on another level, and I think it's just indicative that there is a line that can't be crossed, and that line is obviously not having humans involved in the partaking of the sport.
Well, I was again just doing a bit of research for this podcast, and there's quite a big community of people that miss the argument for was it offside or wasn't it offside or should it be a penalty and stuff like that, which used to happen. Apparently, the kind of appeals process in tennis and everything like that, that's all kind of been eroded away by things like VAR and Hawkeye and everything like that. I have been a referee once, so I was asked to referee a football match for a charity. I don't know any of the rules.
That's astonishing.
It was honestly, that's probably the closest thing I've been to being beaten up by like 22 men that I've ever been, because they were furious. And I've played rugby, so I was pointing in the wrong direction and stuff like that. So I think again, there's a limit where the human involved probably needs to be quite skilled. The encroachment of technology that you would think would improve it, right? So should it be a penalty or not part of the conversation, I would imagine is like a sideshow to the actual game, knowing nothing about it whatsoever. So automating that so instantly it could be like, yeah, it's a penalty, and we have all of the data that tells us it's a penalty, I would imagine would be a good thing. But apparently not. A lot of people are saying no. And of course, there have been a lot of examples where they've got it wrong quite,
Yeah.
you know, even with someone like me could be like, oh yeah, that is
It's drama. It's like sport's about drama, isn't it? And if you automate every decision away, all of that drama is gone, and it just becomes cold, calculated data. And I think that it takes part the fun out of it, like the theatre of sport.
That's how I like my theatre as well. They're cold, calculated, data driven.
yeah, robots performing Shakespeare. I'm long on technology in sport. I think it's obviously got a place, but like you say, it can't encroach too much and completely take it over and take away that theatre and that drama. But I love some of the things that technology does to sport, like being able to drive my little racing simulator that I have in my office, being able to race whenever I want against loads of people in single seaters at tracks that I know, the closest that it possibly can be, against racing drivers who race for real. If you told me that I could do that as a kid, I'd be like, what? Like, that's incredible. And now I can do it. I can just get up and do it whenever the hell I want. And that, I think I mentioned in a podcast before about how the technology of simulation racing is bypassing karting as the entry level for motorsport. And that, for me, is technology opening up the sport for people who can't afford it. And sim racing's not cheap, but it's a damn sight cheaper than doing a motor racing season or a karting season. Also, being able to whack on a VR headset and feel like you're courtside at a game, or look at analysis of an overtake or some kind of performance in sport, watching the Olympics and getting all the different angles and drones like filming amazing shots and feeling closer to that sport is so important. But the sport itself, it should be unaffected. The human element of that sport shouldn't be taken away by technology.
I think there's another element to this that I'm particularly long on, is that I think sports present a incredibly powerful testing ground for technologies and innovation.
Yeah.
I mean, when you think about, I used to drive what for a young version of me was quite a nice car, and the engine in it was very fast and super efficient, and the reason for that was because of testing on a Formula One track. So, and it was nowhere near a Formula One level engine, but just like the research and development that the Formula One team had done, the OEM that manufactured some of the component parts started bringing that innovation into their cars, right? So it was a lovely hot hatch that was very, very quick. And I think that
did you have an accident in it?
No, I sold it, and I wish I hadn't. I sold it, and I wish I hadn't.
I can't imagine you driving it around now, like busting up the M25 at 65 miles an hour.
Tops.
Which you think is fast.
Tops. Lower if I can get into the slow lane behind a lorry and just like 55, nice steady 55. No, I sold it. I mean, it's one of the many mistakes. I think it was a very fun car to drive. But a lot of the safety features too, right?
Yeah.
Are from motorsports. Some of the sustainability, like say fuel efficiency and everything, comes from motorsports too. But there's a lot of other innovations. So like our understanding of some personalized diets, some healthcare, like how we look after particular muscles or particular industries, all comes from sports, because that's where a lot of the funding into, hey, we've got this athlete that's worth, millions or, billions of pounds. We need them to recover in the shortest time possible. So we'll throw as much money and the best minds at doing that. There's then a diffusion of that knowledge into other areas where, non-athletes like me might be receiving care for an injury with a better outcome as a result of it, right? It's a bit of a strange example, but I think if you looked at a lot of the innovation that's happening in sport, it does trickle out into the real world, and it becomes that kind of a testing ground. And what was really interesting in this article I was reading is, to start with, that they came up with the opposite argument to that. So their argument was a lot of the innovation is out in the real world, and then to gain competitive advantage in sports, different teams and individuals will adopt it. So right from the original football shoe, people would put construction nails in the bottom of it so you'd have more grip, and that's kind of where studs came from. So someone just had the bright idea that, hey, if I stick to the ground better with these nails, I'll be in a much better position to be able to play better. And that kind of organic adoption of competitive advantage pulled innovation in from the outside world into sports. And my bet is now, if you looked at it again, because it's such a massive industry with a huge amount of money, very smart people involved in it, that a lot of that innovation is coming from sport out into the real world now. And I don't know if maybe we'll do some research and we'll see whether or not that's true. But it would surprise me, again, even if you just took a test case like Formula One, how much of that innovation goes out into the cars that we drive, that are relatively normal vehicles, I assume.
Yeah, I think it was much more in the past than it is now. Previously, it was a lot more relevant than it was today, but that we can't understate some of the impact that's had. And you see news reports about Formula One pit crew teams training NHS staff to do stuff in coordination and get emergency responses quicker because they're a really well-oiled machine. You see, like during COVID, I think they made loads of CPAP machines because they had the manufacturing capability to do that. So it's still a testing ground, and it's still a technology innovation center that applies elsewhere. And I think, to expand that from Formula One, I think even things like Hawkeye will improve computer vision.
Another interesting point, and you touched on this a little bit because you do this with your Formula One car, is technology's role in immersing non-athletes in the world to a greater extent. So one of the things that's in, when you look at some of these athletes doing incredibly powerful things, you want to kind of understand what it feels like, right? So what does almost the pressure and the stress on the human body feel like? So you talk about your car that's got special weight things that demonstrates just how heavy it is and difficult it is to steer, and how much G-force and pressure is placed on someone. That understanding, I think, will become an incredibly important part of sports, and then how you can get to that with things like augmented reality and virtual reality, and like haptic devices that can make that happen. I don't know, but that I think is going to be a huge space. So
I really love like simulation games because I really like the ability to do something that I wouldn't otherwise be able to do through technology. So driving. I was reading this thing about there's an NFL quarterback who credits VR with improving his ability to play because he uses it for training. I could use that same thing, right? And these things feel so different when you're in them versus watching them on the telly, and it can make it much more visceral, like you say.
Well, exactly. So that American football example is like exactly the point. So imagine using virtual reality. You could face off against like the Miami Dolphins, right? They're all like 7 foot and enormous, and you're just sitting there, kind of being like, okay, I get why this is quite scary and intense.
Yeah.
But also just understanding the raw power that goes into some of this activity. I mean, I think actually the best one I've seen is manual. I didn't come up with this idea, but in the middle of the Olympics Day, someone tweeted that one of the things they should do is next to every athlete, like throwing the javelin or doing the run, there should just be a normal person selected from the crowd doing the same thing. Because when you've got like 20 of the best people at that thing doing it at the same time, a lot's lost in translation. So imagine like the javelin, 20 of the best people, and then just I'm there trying to launch this thing as far as I can. And it's like, just it covers like nowhere near like an eighth of the distance.
It's like when you actually like envisage how high a high jumper jumps.
Yeah.
You're like, what?
Yeah, exactly. And like you say, again, when we were talking about your Formula One simulator, when you were telling me, you could break your arm. Yeah. If you do it properly, it's that powerful because it's there to replicate the forces that are at play on a driver. Until you told me that, I know nothing about the sport. I'm sitting thinking like, this is going to be manifestly different from driving a Nissan Juke, surely, with all the technology and all the tools these guys have these days. Like, it's they're just having a nice drive around the track and just trying to get around as fast as possible. And putting people in that seats, they can feel like, again, the G-force, the heat. The pressure and the stress is something that we're increasingly able to do, and I think that'll break down a lot of boundaries and might even get people like me who just are awful at engaging with any sport quite interested in it.
What about we had a quick chat before we started recording about cheating. Do we think that technology is enabling cheating, enabling people to get away with doping, or even to the extent where some swimmers are wearing such technologically advanced materials in their swimsuits that they're going 0.01 second faster? But that's what makes the difference between winning and coming second.
So I mean that's the part that interests me. Let's say the actual the doping and stuff like that, because I think people are always going to find people always find a way of cheating. It's harder, I think. Again, much like our crime podcast, I feel like it would be harder to get away with now than it ever has been before. That said, there was a recent. I mean, he was exonerated, luckily. And I don't know whether or not people outside of the UK play conkers, but the winner of the World Conker Championship was accused of having steel conkers.
Yeah. I mean, there's a technologically feat getting steel into a conker with it.
Quite
how'd
right.
you do that?
Yeah, quite right. But he hadn't, apparently. So good for him. He did win. Well done. And he's an 80-year-old man. But there was this big uproar, just like, no, those conkers are clearly made of steel. In sports like that, clearly it's possible to potentially get away with
paint a ball bearing or something.
Yeah, exactly. But in professional sports, and I don't dare suggest that the World Conker Championships isn't a professional sport, but in professional sports, perhaps marginally higher budgets, I think it is quite difficult to get away with cheating. There's so many cameras pointed at and tests taken, everything like that. But the defined cheating part is getting harder. So there are shoes now.
Just to your point, they're even suggesting a championship or the doping Olympics, where it's take as many steroids as you want. We want to see the peak of what humans are able to achieve with the most amount of drugs you're allowed. That's taking it to the extreme. Is that as enjoyable? I don't know. That's
I would watch
preference.
That. Yeah. I would 100% watch that. That would, more so than the actual Olympics. I think I'd be really curious just to see what that even looks like. How does that even happen? But there's a point outside of dope. There are tools now that look at your genetic material and kind of. I mean, I think say okay, this is the sport you should do. Based on your genetics, you're going to be more successful at this particular sport, than any others and stuff like that. Or, based on your genetics, you're more likely to have this injury, so we can safeguard against it and stuff like that. And I'm not suggesting avoiding injury is not cheating, but at what point are we really taking all of I can't think of the right word, but romance out of the sport?
Because it's the drama again. It's the drama of somebody who's worked really hard to do it versus somebody who's just kind of using technology to make themselves better.
Yeah, exactly. And if you're correcting for every variable, what is anyway? It almost gets to this point where it's okay, you are predestined to be the best athlete. You don't even need to do the sport anymore. We just know it based on all of the data.
Yeah,
here's a medal. Right? And it's a really flippant and extreme example, but are we getting to that stage where there is so much technology, so much innovation around it that we just know? This person's going to win the race. We don't even need to run the race in the first place.
And at what point do you stop, right? And we spoke about the 1930s versus 2024. It's under a second's worth of difference. Those marginal gains are going to get even more marginal as we go on. At what point do you hit saturation and you think we've got to do something different, take the human out of it altogether? But it's just not going to happen.
And I think the audience experience part is the only bit where, because I can remember reading, it was quite a while ago now, that there are these new shoes, right, running shoes that give you extra lift, and it means you can run much faster. And I was sitting there thinking, is that cheating?
Yeah,
is that that's not fair, is it? If I don't have those shoes and someone has those shoes, and presumably they're very expensive, so there's an access issue there too, then that's cheating, isn't it? If we were running next to each other.
It kind of is.
It feels that way. So everyone has to wear those shoes, and and then the baseline is reset again. So there's all of those parts which, as we've established, probably the one thing we've established on this podcast is that we know nothing about any of this. And shouldn't be talking about it. So other people will discuss that part. But audience experience, however, I think that there's a huge amount of technology. I mean, again, just thinking back to that pub, if everyone in there was wearing a headset and felt like they were in the stadium, and were enjoying the atmosphere in real time. because it was beamed in from different data points, different cameras and stuff like that.
Everybody in a pub wearing a headset, drinking their pints through tubes.
But then I could read in silence in the corner without their scrutinizing eyes, couldn't I? They wouldn't know I was there. I'd slip in, read my book, and slip back out again. But like that as an example, that's a huge one. And even like the role of data analysis, like people are starting to really enjoy that part of it. So when I can remember, is it Wimbledon? They flash up the speed of the ball went and stuff like that. There's more data. Again, I know this because I had to sit through a football match. There's data on who's held the ball for the most amount of time, what direction they're running in the most, what side they favour, and everything like that. And there were people in the pub who had opinions of we should be on that side. That's not his strongest side, and everything. So that now becomes part of the experience too. The technology embedded in the audience experience. The bit where it's an athlete using it for competitive gain, I feel less certain about where the line should be drawn. Because to me, it feels like it's getting a bit too much. But
the data analysis is a really good one because you're going to the gym. I've recently started running a lot, and I was never able to run because I found it terribly boring, and I didn't really see any benefit. That was because I was running for like 2 minutes at a time, not really doing anything. But I got a smartwatch, takes my heartbeat and my GPS and stuff like that. Start interrogating the data. Turns out, as a nerd, all you need to do is provide me with some data and I'll do it, and I'll go, I need to go for a run because I need to update my Strava graphs and my Strava fitness has gone down, so I need to do that. So, having that data available for the audience is really good. It's kind of interesting to say maybe you should like mask that from the people who are playing it so nobody can get an advantage by having data over one team or whatever. So, there's the way in which it affects performance. I think part of the fun is the lack of technology in sport.
I think so. Mike, I agree. I agree. There is a part where, again, like to my point, it almost feels deterministic that we know so much about the athlete, so much of what's going on is managed elsewhere. That it's just like, that this person's going to win. So we may as well just give them the medal now. I think all the time that athlete can outrun me or outplay me in the same equipment. However, I think we're probably quite safe, because there's still.
What we're safe from you just winning everything in the Olympics.
Yeah,
having here's all Ollie the medals. In the powerlifting and the luge.
That's at the same time. But like so the kind of the baseline with someone like me providing over Usain Bolt, if we both have all of the technology, the same diet plan and everything, my guess is I'm still going to come in second. That's my humble bet. If Usain Bolt, if you're listening, and you do want to try that out and race me, then let's do it.
I'd watch that. I'd watch it.
Yeah, it's park up the road. We could run around that.
Can you get Steve Backley on as well and do the javelin throw? I want to see you do various Olympic sports next to professional athletes.
If Steve could bring 2 javelins though, because I'm not gonna get another. I'm not gonna buy a javelin. Where would I put it?
We'd use a stick.
Yeah, that's right. He has to use a proper javelin, and I've got a kite.
Okay. Well, so right. Okay. Let's quickly go back and think technology in sports. Are we long or short?
Long. Yeah, long. Definitely.
Okay, I'm going to do the classic Duncan thing. So I'm long for the audience, short for the performers. The athletes.
The performers, yeah, that's right. Yeah,
that just shows the level of engagement. Well, as I said, it's theatre, right? All right, thank you for listening. We'll be back soon. Cheers. Say bye.
Goodbye. Cheerio.
Just say thanks for listening, everyone.
Thanks.
Oh my God. Oh my.
Do it again.
Thanks for listening, everyone.
Also, thanks for me.
Goodbye.
Goodbye. Cheerio.
Oh, goodbye. I'm going to have to edit that. Or maybe I just won't.